Yeah, and I think over time it's been it's been how systems have developed, isn't it?
Yeah,
And systems have developed in a very unequal way, where all of the cards are on one side of the table and the recipient is on the other side of the table. And if they're
yeah,
alive in the morning and alive at night,
yeah,
then that's good enough for the system. The
yeah,
fact that
yeah,
you have been labeled as having a learning disability therefore puts you out there, out of sight and out of sound, and you really don't belong. You
yeah,
really, you're a non-issue as far
yeah,
as the human race is concerned.
yeah,
So there's a lot of battering on doors and pushing in order to have people even recognize that you exist,
yeah,
never
yeah,
mind what your needs might
yeah,
be. And
yeah,
so, just finding you alive in the morning and alive at night isn't good enough. If you are to be respected as a person, you have to be valued and you have to have your needs met and you
yeah,
have to be able to live a life of your choosing. And that's the grounding, I guess, that we come from, that says a person has the right to a life of their choosing.
yeah,
And Jen is a dancer. Jen has always been a dancer. Jen has left us in no doubt at any turn in the road that she is a dancer, from the moment that she was born, more or less. She's been a dancer. And, I thought she would grow out of it. I thought it was a Peter Pan complex. I figured that once she reached a certain age that actually she'd start turning her attention to something else. But no, she carried on dancing. And you can say actually it's Peter Pan complex because she has severe learning disabilities, and those mean that her mind is not that of her chronological age,
mm,
and therefore the dance is incredibly important to her, more important than it is probably to a non-disabled dancer, because it's her methodology, it's her means of being heard, it's her means of having you understand whether she's in a good place or not, it's
yeah,
her means of communication, it's her language. And
yeah,
that is incredibly important and powerful. But unless you know her, unless you take the time and the trouble to get to rub alongside her in an assessment that's going to take an hour, and she is going to be put in a pile over here somewhere because of her IQ and effectively out of sight and out of mind,
yeah,
is one way of looking at it. And I suppose you might, if you were a certain person, accept that. But, whoever was up against the Blackwells, and the Blackwells weren't going to accept that. So the Blackwells were questioning the practice. I'm saying this is not any way to treat a human being. This is a human being you're talking about. This is not a learning disability. This is a person. Her name is Jen. Jen is a dancer. Jen wants to set the world alight with her dance. Not that we knew that in the first day, but her aspiration is to take her dance to the ends of the world. And she
yeah,
wants to travel around in a jumbo jet and have Down syndrome emblazoned down the side of it. And she's very clear on her aspirations, but she's doing pretty darn well on that path. And, to actually be honored and recognized in the way that she is extraordinary. But then that embraces everybody within the Down syndrome family, which is how they choose to term themselves. And they
yeah,
want that family to broaden out and embrace
yeah,
everybody else, because as far as they are concerned, there are no barriers. Everybody is welcome. You don't have to knock on a door and say, "Can I come in? I've got a learning disability." It's like, yes, we have learning disabilities.
yeah,
We work co-production. What's the word? In co-production with non-disabled dancers. Everybody is welcome. Come on in. There's no glass ceilings, there's no barriers. There's nothing to prevent anybody stepping up and participating and experience the sheer ebullient joy that is pervading from all of the dancers all of the time. You walk into the Down syndrome space and it's alive, it's buzzing, it's vibrant, it's energetic, it's inclusive, it's welcoming, it's everything that well, at least that I would want to find behind doors of somewhere I was going to be going. And people walk in and they go, "Oh, wow. This is not what I expected from a place with a learning disability." And then, of course, that magic permeates through, and you speak with people, and you find yourself on bigger and bigger stages and doing more and more high-profile events and spreading that word so that more and more
mm,
people can see people with a learning disability actually have the
yeah,
means of achieving things in their lives if you will listen to them and give them the chance and the support that they need, which is different to the support that a non-disabled person needs. But there's only a spectrum of the population who can hear that and
Yeah.
who then want to tune into that, and then more than that, want to get engaged in that in a real way
Yeah.
to actually enable those parties, those people with learning disabilities, to speak to them. And TJ is one such person. And TJ's take on all of this would be really interesting because she had little or no experience of learning disability until I came knocking on the door and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, I need help with this.
Yeah.
And are you up for that?" And she's had quite a serious year, I think, of of finding out who we are and what makes us tick, and how we've approached life for the
Yeah.
last 42 years. So
Yeah.
obviously I'm on my soapbox, but
No, you're
it's
fine.
I think it's
Yeah.
really important that people are not just either marginalized or lumped together for any reason.
Mm,
Everybody is an individual, and
yeah.
everybody deserves the rights of every other individual,
Yeah.
whoever they are.
Yeah. But I kind of think, it is that bit about it's that bit about if we don't keep pushing, yeah, and if we don't keep saying actually things are not right, they will never ever get to a point where because let's be honest, history repeats itself, doesn't it, all the time? Yeah. And you could almost argue that we're in that phase in a phase at the moment where there's a real risk um that we start going backwards and we start saying, oh, actually, people with learning disability really like to live in big care homes for 90 people. There's a real risk that, and we're not doing that in the best interest of people. We're allowing us to think that actually, if we do that, then we're going to have enough money to support people. Yeah, you know, and I think that it's really important to keep saying, actually, you are no different to me. Um, we might have different knowledge, we might have different skills, we might have different things that prevent us from doing things. I'm deliberately using the word prevent us from doing things rather than disability. Yeah. Um, but actually, there's loads of things I can do that you can't do, and vice versa. So let's share and learn from each other and recognize that the thing that we do have in common, whether we have full use of them or not, is that we have two arms, two legs, a head, and a body, regardless of our ethnicity, our culture, the color of our skin, whether we can walk or not, whether or not our mind works in the same way as other people. Actually, we're still fundamentally, basically the same. So, and
Absolutely.
that's okay, you know.
Yeah, and I think you've come full circle, which I think is always fabulous in these conversations, in the listening to the individual.
Mm.
And it's how do we help everybody, whatever the label or the role or the professional or the parent or the carer or the support worker, how do we help everybody to be,
Mm.
their best self, and allow each of us to listen to the needs of the person that we're walking with, whether it's a child, a parent,
Yeah.
someone that is in our classroom at school, whether it is someone on our social work list. It's that, how do we encourage that mentality in a way that everybody matters, everybody has something to contribute. It's not a tick box, it's not well, you fit into this label, you're getting this benefit, so you must be that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which it is currently my experience of what I'm understanding from walking into this world of learning disability that I've been in for a year now,
Yeah.
alongside Sue and Jen, and spending time with them both very separately, um, and Jen and her support workers. And you know, and alongside Down syndrome and experiencing everything that Down syndrome has to offer and seeing how what Down syndrome offers in a workshop around inclusion in action, or seeing Down syndrome dance at a railway station takeover and seeing the reaction of people going, wow, I'd had no idea. And I had no idea.
Yeah.
Because people with learning disabilities have never been around in my world, because they have been put and classed and moved out of the system. So I've not had the opportunity to learn from people like Jen, who has taught me a huge amount about listening and about humanity and about the art of the possible and the possibilities. I mean, who knew that someone like Jen, with her motivational, inspirational view, her passion, her everything she does and who she is, would get a British Empire Medal in the King's Birthday Honours List?
Yeah.
You know, it's huge. And Down syndrome, you know, being recognised as a, you know, inclusive, you know, innovating inclusion in the way that it does, you know, and it's, and I think it might have been before we started recording, you know, you were saying, Jim, about, you know, how do we make this normal? And I think that's it. It's like, how do we make organizations like Down syndrome that work in a way that actually shows everybody matters? You know, how do we make that as well? Of course everybody matters. You know, of course, but you know, how do we get that in every organization, in every workplace, in every business, in every institution? You know, how do we get that ripple effect? You know,
There's a real conundrum in there, Tracey-Jane. And this is something I've written about in the past, about the challenge for people who work in social care is that the best social care is invisible. You don't know it's happening. Yeah. And the challenge for social care organizations and organizations like Down syndrome is to be invisible and not invisible, so that actually people don't realize that Jen has a disability, but what they see is an organization that's fantastic at delivering brilliant dance stuff, whether it's teaching stuff, putting on shows, etc., etc. Yeah. The challenge there is that if you make the disability invisible, then Down syndrome becomes much more invisible, and you don't change the world. Yeah. And actually, the key thing for me about the stuff you do and the stuff lots of different organizations like Jen's do is about, we haven't actually changed the world yet. Yeah? And we may never change the world, but that doesn't stop us every day from working to change the world. Because I've always said to people that I've managed, I said, if that piece of training you've done has changed one person's mind out of the 400 people that attended it, you've done your job properly. And that for me is the thing with Down syndrome. If it's changed one person that walks through Manchester Piccadilly station, if one person has changed their perspective on how they see people with a learning disability, then that's enough. Yeah? The number one is enough. One is enough. It doesn't have to be 40, it doesn't have to be 80. One person's mind changing is, because that person will then change other people's minds.
and that's the ripples.
Yeah, and that's the ripple effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, all I can say is that the joy and the happiness that ooze from every person connected with Down syndrome is palpable, and it's infectious. And you just walk into that space and you're in a different space. All of a sudden you're encompassed by joy and by opportunity and by appetite to go further and do more and be more inspiring and challenge yourself. And that's, that feeds you, that keeps you going. And so it's Down syndrome, I guess, and the fact that this is forging forward, that keeps us going, and hopefully for many, many years to come. And just the dynamicism and the determination and the drive and the vision and the heady realities and being taken notice of by people far outside the disability spectrum now. And I think that's really, really exciting to be recognized within, if you like, normal or normalized society as being, oh, sorry, my phone, as contributing to create a better world. And that of itself is an incredible ability.
Yeah. Maybe the strap line for Down syndrome, if you haven't already got one, Sue, is let's just have fun.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe strapline is actually under discussion right here and now.
Yeah, maybe it needs to be something as simple as that. Yeah. Let's have.
Yeah.
And that's hugely important in anybody's life.
Yeah.
Anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, I'm Jim Thomas, and I have spent most of my working career working on all sorts of different training and education stuff in every aspect of health and social care you can think of. I have a terrible inability to think in straight lines, and so everything I do is always very, very lateral. And I've been involved in everything from what's the role of the arts in social care to the role of AI and robotics to even running my own little music company.
I'm Sue Blackwell, mum to two children, Jen Blackwell and Anthony Blackwell. And together we have forged 42 years of being a family. Down syndrome is the charity that we set up where dancers with learning disabilities are the leaders. They determine what we will focus on, who they want to impact, how they want to work, where they want to live even, and everything about Down syndrome is led by the dancers with learning disabilities, who invite the rest of us along to their journey, making it thoroughly inclusive, where equity is the norm and everybody's voice is heard and is valued equally.